you doing?
Not bad, man. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Yeah, somebody just linked me your channel, said you're into debating and whatnot.
Okay, word.
Yeah, so I was assuming because you're named God's favorite, you're religious.
Well, I believe in God, yeah, but like
Okay.
I wouldn't say I so much religious rather than spiritual, maybe.
Okay. So yeah, I was interested in debating you on one of two topics. You can choose either moral realism, so the idea that morality is objective, and usually religious people believe that morality is created by God, or we could just debate on veganism.
Okay, so with veganism, like what? So like I've seen some of your debates on veganism actually already. So like what is your like if you want to give a just so everyone in the crowd knows what your stance is with veganism.
Yeah, so veganism is defined as the belief and lifestyle practice of giving animals the same rights as human beings. So the basic idea being that there are not any substantial enough differences between humans and animals where it would be justifiable to take away human rights from animals. So there are humans that you can find that are, say, mentally deficient or disabled, who can't speak. We wouldn't take away rights from them on that basis. So why would you take away rights from, say, a cow, even though you could find comparable human beings that have about the same mental capacity as these animals?
Yeah, so so like for that, for instance, when I hear that, my answer would be like, so for instance, a cow, that species isn't like of the nature to have the capability of the general human being. So like most human beings are way above a cow. You know, like we understand our surroundings, we understand our death is coming. Like there's a lot
Sure.
we understand compared to a cow.
Yeah, sure. But you believe we should be logically consistent, correct?
Logically consistent, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're going to take away the rights of a cow because, say, they're not intelligent enough, they don't have human wisdom, then in order to be logically consistent, you'd have to say, even though it's a marginal case, you would take away human rights from a human if they lacked those traits, like human wisdom and intelligence.
Right, that's human rights that humans created for humans, right?
Well, yeah, sure. But again, you believe in logical consistency, right? So if
Yeah,
you're going to take
like
away rights from an
logic.
animal on the basis of intelligence or lacking human wisdom, then if a human were to lack intelligence or human wisdom, then you would logically have to be in favor of taking away rights from that human.
Not necessarily though, because again, like I'm saying, the cow will never have like it doesn't matter if the cow has a mental deficiency or if it's a smart cow, it'll never be the same as a human, where that person that has that disability still is a human being, like of the nature to have the same capabilities of me and you.
Okay, so you care about like humans just being human, like part of the human species?
Right, like there's a reason where like we are at the top of the food chain, right? Like because we manipulate our surroundings to help us. So like we've eaten meat since the beginning of time, right?
Right, but like I'm just wondering if you were to find a human being that was trait equalized to a cow, so same level of intelligence, lacking in human wisdom, you wouldn't be in favor of killing that human being on the basis of it being human, correct?
Right, on the basis that it's a human being. Because like again, we've created human rights for humans, not for cows.
So I would argue you don't really care if something's human or not. And the reason I think that is because if we were to encounter a very intelligent alien species, say like Vulcans from Star Trek, their Vulcans are very intelligent. Their culture is very similar to ours. They're even human shaped. They look very similar, but they're not human. You wouldn't be in favor of taking away rights from a very intelligent animal species, alien species, correct?
Okay, so let me get this straight. The alien looks exactly like a human.
Doesn't have to look like a human, but let's say the alien has human or human-like wisdom. So their culture is similar to ours. They have a language, things like that. You wouldn't be in favor of like killing an alien species and turning them into hamburgers if they're intelligent.
As intelligent as human beings. So like they're basically human beings.
Yeah, so could be Vulcans from Star Trek, or it could be an alien species from Star Wars, something like that.
But it's still equivalent to human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would just call them human beings, but yeah, I wouldn't be okay with doing that to them, though.
Right. So what you really care about is human wisdom or human-like wisdom and intelligence. So like
no, I care about the whole
aspect.
Like biological form that is a human. Like that I care about everything that comes with being a human. And I think there's a reason we've created the rights for
okay, but like I mean, if there was like an alien species, like I don't know if you've played like video games like Crysis, right?
I've never played Crysis, but I've played games with like alien species, and I know what you're saying. Like, so you're saying like if it looks like all fucked up, weird looking things?
Yeah, like in Crysis, the aliens are squid-like. They're actually related to squids, and they have mechanical parts that give them the ability to like grab things. So like an alien species that's highly intelligent, but like looks totally different to us, that looks like a squid. Presumably, you wouldn't be okay with killing them if they had, again, human-like wisdom and intelligence.
No, I wouldn't be okay with it. Just the same as like if we found like a new species of an animal that like no one's ever seen before, I wouldn't be okay with us deciding, hey, let's just start eating this animal. We already have cattle and chicken and everything that we eat. Why would we do that to this new? So like I wouldn't think like, hey, this new human being, let's just start eating them. That's like, you know, but like if they were like squid-like things and then they started like trying to like kill humans, fuck them. Eat them too.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is if you're going to say like being part of the human species and having human intelligence is what you value, but I can give you a situation where the species isn't human and is very different from a human, but has human-like wisdom and intelligence, you wouldn't be in favor of killing it. So like, it seems like the common denominator here is human-like wisdom and intelligence and not being part of the human species. So it like, again, it doesn't seem like it matters to you if something's part of the human species or not. The common denominator seems to be intelligence and wisdom.
Right. Like if we found like a random cow out of nowhere and this cow started like talking to everybody in English and started building himself a house and he was like, you know, I think I want to pass down my genes to the next generation. I'd be like, yo, that cow, leave that cow alone, bro. We can't eat that cow. That cow is something special about that cow. Yeah,
right.
Like,
so
be like a new thing, right? This is like we don't have this already. Like this is what I mean. When we discover new things, I don't think the best thing to do is just start killing it.
Yeah, so if you agree with that, then I see a logical contradiction here because on one hand, you're saying the determining factor that gives us a right to kill and eat animals is animals lacking in human wisdom and intelligence. But if we were to find a human being that's lacking in human intelligence and wisdom, you wouldn't be okay with killing and eating them. So it is both the case and not the case that human wisdom and intelligence grants a being a right to life. So that's a contradiction.
No, wait a minute. So if I'm saying if it's what you describe this alien species is exactly like a human, right?
Well, I gave you two scenarios. They could be exactly like a human or they could be quite different, but they still have human wisdom and intelligence.
Right. Like they talk like us. They have same like cultures like us, everything.
Like we don't even have to stick on the alien thing. I mean, you just gave a hypothetical of a cow that had human
something
intelligence.
Impossible, right? Like but if that did happen, I think it would be an interesting thing to study it instead of eating it.
Well, if a cow had human wisdom and intelligence and it could like talk to you just like we're talking now, you wouldn't be in favor of killing it. So the common denominator again seems to be human wisdom and intelligence. So like this leads to a
Yeah, that's
contradiction
why we wait. Why though?
because you're saying that it is both the case and not the case that human wisdom and intelligence grants a being a right to life. Because in the one case, you would not kill an animal with human intelligence and wisdom, but you wouldn't kill a human with human intelligence and wisdom.
Yeah, wait, that's exactly. I wouldn't kill the human ever.
Right.
And then if I said we probably shouldn't kill the cow that could talk if that would happen.
Right. But if the value that you're like the value for why you'd be willing to kill a cow is a lacking of human wisdom and intelligence, then that's a contradiction because on one hand, you wouldn't kill an animal with human wisdom and intelligence. Or sorry, you would kill an animal that has that lacks human wisdom and intelligence, but you wouldn't kill a human that lacks human wisdom and intelligence. So that's a contradiction. So it is
right,
both
because
the
a
case
human again. No, because I've said why. Because a human is already of that nature. Like we're human beings, right? Like so, like in general, humans have the same wisdom, intelligence, sentience as us, right? Like
well, you certainly can find humans that lack that. Like again,
yeah,
it might be
like
a marginal case.
You can, but in general. Right?
Yeah,
but
in general.
In general, 99% of cows, actually 100% of cows right now, for our knowledge, is not talking and they don't have intelligence and wisdoms like human beings.
Right. But again, if you value human wisdom and intelligence, so you would kill a cow that's lacking in human wisdom and intelligence, but you wouldn't kill a cow that has human wisdom and intelligence, then in order to be logically consistent, if a human were lacking human wisdom and intelligence,
no, I wouldn't kill that cow for
eliminating
scientific purposes, right? Like we would study this cow. We would wonder, like, hey, can more cows do this? Maybe eventually, after we study that talking cow, I would change my mind and think maybe we should stop eating cows. But until that happens, I'm good with eating cows.
I'm. What would the research on this, supposed talking cow have to show for you to
I don't
grant
know.
it the right to life?
It's there's a lot of things that could come out of this, right? We could find out that fish talk too. Do vegans eat fish?
No.
Okay. Just make sense.
So, but again, like the value that you seem to have latched onto for why it's wrong to kill human beings is human wisdom and intelligence. Right. So if a cow had human wisdom and intelligence, why wouldn't you just grant it human rights?
Because why wouldn't I grant it human rights? Because it's not a human being. Again,
right, but the value
we're still a separate species. Even if we have the same intelligence, we're still a separate species, right?
Right, but I mean, you would like let's say if black people turned out to not be human, you'd still want to give black people human rights, right?
Or if they turned out not to be human?
Yeah, let's say they, I don't know, mutated. All black people mutated, and they lacked the cluster genetics that would make them human, so they couldn't interbreed with white people anymore. Like, presumably, you'd still want black people to have human rights, right?
Yeah, but like this would be like an evolving thing. We'd have to like again understand with science. We can't just jump into things like that. Like, oh, you know what? We just heard they're mutated. Let's start eating them. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I don't see why that would be the case. If the value is human wisdom and intelligence, then presumably any species that has human wisdom and intelligence would therefore need to be granted human rights.
Okay, even if I gave you this one cow that had that was able to talk, and I gave you that we gave this cow human rights. We'd let him have a house and a car and a job, all this, okay? That doesn't say anything for all the other cows that are still normal cows.
Right. So if you agree, this is the value that grants a being a right to life, human wisdom and intelligence.
Not a right to life, just a right to human life.
Sure. Sure. A right to human rights.
Yeah.
Then in order to be logically consistent, it would have to work the other way around in the human case. So
No.
in the human, yeah, it would.
No, because the species, the part that we're still Homo sapien, we're still human beings, that part solidifies everything.
But
That's
you would grant a cow with human intelligence and wisdom a right to life. So I don't see how you could value species in this case. Like,
well,
what you value, the common
it doesn't
denominator
take
here,
away.
again.
It does no. One doesn't take away from the other, though.
Well,
I can value human life over any other species, and still grant another species human rights if it was to somehow talk. But like, I can still value. Like, you don't think you can value something more and still give a respect to something else?
Yes, but again, what I'm seeing here is the common denominator, the thing you care about, is human intelligence and wisdom. I don't think you care about whether or not something is part of the same species as you, because again, if you're willing to grant willing to grant human rights to another species that has human intelligence and wisdom, then that means what's important is human intelligence and wisdom and not being part of the species. So
in that case, in the case of the cow, because it's impossible to be a part of the human species, yes, that would be important for that cow. But in the case of a human versus any animal, no.
Okay, so for any other species, they require human intelligence and wisdom.
We couldn't live with bears. You understand that, right? Like, we couldn't have a bear as a neighbor and come out and say, "Hi, bear." Like, they would just eat us alive.
Well, you could. I've seen people who have bear neighbors or bear pets, but
yeah, but that's raising them from a cub, stolen from their mother. Yeah, that's like torture, right? They're stealing these cubs from their mothers. Like,
I wouldn't say that's torture.
Why not?
Well,
how do you know better how an animal should live?
Well, I'm more intelligent than they are, and I would argue that, yeah, you could probably give a bear a better quality life.
Right. So how do you know we're not giving the cows a better quality life than they would have? How do you know that they're not? We're intelligent. We're human beings.
Well,
in the wild, what would happen to the cows and the bears living next to each other?
Yeah, you likely could give a cow a better life in nature, but than
what
in
if we let the cows out with like wolves, bears, coyotes?
Yeah, so I'm not saying we should release all all domesticated animals from captivity, because yeah, that would be dooming them to death basically. But again, if you're claiming in order for another species to be granted human rights, they have to have human wisdom and intelligence. But in order for a human to be granted human rights, all they need is to be human. Right, that's what you're claiming.
That's why we made human rights, right? Like, human rights is something we made up. Humans made this up. This isn't something just given to us, right?
And just to be clear, you're defining human.
When you go to jail, you don't have rights anymore, right? So like, rights is just something you're borrowing right now.
Sure.
If you go to the store and you don't have the right to take those chocolate bars from the store, because then someone with a gun comes and says, "Hey, go to jail."
Sure. So and to be clear, you're defining human as being part of the species or the genus Homo or Homo sapien.
What would you? Yeah, humans. Yes, human beings.
Okay. So
what would you decide we do to like when animals kill each other, right? Because like it seems like you have a problem with humans killing.
I'm in favor of killing carnivorous animals.
You're in favor of killing carnivorous.
Yeah, animals. To prevent them from killing other animals. Yes.
So just wipe out all the wolves, jaguars, lions, tigers, bears. Just wipe them off this.
Unless you can put them in captivity and feed them a vegan diet, then yes.
Well, most of them they would die like that. So how about deers though? Deers do eat, like, you've seen videos of like deers eating like chickens off the ground and shit. Deers are just like the ones.
I've seen cows and deer eat mice before. Now
Free
that seems
ranging
to
chickens are
be,
going to eat worms as well. Should we wipe out all the chickens? They eat
well,
the
I don't
worms,
think
the
worms are
grub.
sentient, but
Oh, you don't care about bugs?
well, I only care about sentient life.
Wait, how do you know that the worm isn't sentient?
Well, they don't have a brain or nervous system, so unless I'm wrong, they don't have a brain or nervous system, so they're not sentient.
Okay.
But
I'm
but
pretty
again,
sure
to get
worms have a
back
brain.
to the, like, trait topic. Now, if the value is humans need to just be part of the human species to be given human rights, other species need human wisdom and intelligence to be given human rights.
Yeah.
So let's say if tomorrow we discovered black people aren't part of the human species, they're not Homo sapiens, or it could be any, human race or that we thought was human,
Yeah.
wasn't part of the human species. If we found mentally disabled black people, you'd be fine with killing them since they lack those two requirements, that they're not part of the human species and they're mentally disabled.
No, because so this would be like a new thing again. You're presenting a new information. We would have just found out this. So like again, this was they were human being and something happened, I guess, overnight. But like, yeah, it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't be okay.
Well, then that would be a contradiction because
No.
again, if the two, then is there some other value that you have?
They were human being once.
Okay, well, I mean, at one point we weren't human beings. Like, if you track our evolutionary progression, we went for yeah, we're Homo sapiens now, but at one point, there was like Neanderthals, Homo habilis, and then if you go back, so I mean, at one point in our evolutionary history, do you think it would have been okay to wipe out our ancestors and turn them into hamburgers?
No.
Okay, so
our ancestors are us still, human being. They're still,
well, they weren't. If you go far enough back in our evolutionary history, we
wouldn't have been there then, right? So there wasn't any.
Well, right. So you would have been fine with, say, some other more intelligent species rounding up our ancient ancestors and killing and eating us, and then having monkey burgers, basically.
Like more like intelligent species. Yeah, we would have been the evolution of them instead, right? We were the ones that were doing that to everything else.
No, they would have been the ones who maybe have these sorts of conversations.
Right, exactly. Right. So like that's what I'm saying. Like we were the ones that did all that. So yes, of course I'm cool with that. We had to do that to get to where we are today, right?
Yeah, presumably we might have had to have killed in order to survive, but I don't think that necessarily means it's a good thing.
Lots. Like the only thing that's the only thing that's even allowing you to be in this computer talking to each other is that like we don't have we have human rights. We don't have a bunch of people running around with guns and swords and killing each other.
Right. Well, I mean,
it's human rights that stop that. Like that's what I mean. You just proposed for a world that we would have to wipe out. You're okay with just genociding every animal that eats meat?
Yes, because that would prevent more rights violations. Let me ask you this: if there was, say, vampires that existed, would you want to wipe out vampires if they would kill human beings?
If they would kill human beings, yes.
Yeah,
we would have to do that, right?
So, I don't know why that's unreasonable. If we're willing to kill vampires or ghouls from Tokyo Ghoul or something, or xenomorphs, like if we're willing to kill carnivorous animals that are killing human beings, I don't know why it's unreasonable.
When you take out like predators out of certain areas and you let the prey keep going, like how many you would have to fucking kick through rabbits on your way to your car. You'd be fucking squishing rabbits all day on the way to work. Like,
well, so there are animals that are herbivorous.
all the cats, you're just willing to wipe out all the cats, the dogs, everybody.
Well, they're domesticated. They're a domesticated species, and you can feed them a vegan diet. I have a cat. He has a vegan diet.
Let's see your cat.
Okay.
If your cat
I'll
doesn't have
grab my cat.
eyes, I'm gonna be surprised.
I'll grab my cat. Just give me a second.
I want to see this cat. Every time I look up vegan cats on the internet, they look sick as hell, bro.
I can't grab them, but if you check out my Instagram, vegangains.real, you can. I have a bunch of photos and videos of them.
Okay.
I think he's 3 years old now, and he's been on a vegan diet since he was about 6 to 8 weeks old when I adopted him.
Okay, so you don't think this is kind of like torture, or like why do you get to decide what this cat gets to eat?
Well, regardless of what I feed him, he's not making the choice on what to eat. So whether I'm feeding him a vegan
why do you get to choose like the type of diet this cat would have when like normally they eat meat?
Yeah, so normally they would eat meat, but if I care
that cat outside today, it's going to eat them out or whatever.
Well, likely. He tends to really like plant foods, though. He really likes hummus. But yeah, so the reason I feed my cat a vegan diet isn't for health reasons, although according to the most recent research, it seems that vegan cats actually are more healthful than cats fed a traditional diet. It's for ethical reasons. If I'm going to take care of an animal like a cat, it doesn't make sense for me to kill other animals to feed to my cat. So that would be hypocritical. So why would I value the cat but not the other animals the cat's eating?
I got you. Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, yeah, because like I would say, if that's why I asked about like if your cat actually eats that, because like if you fed your cat tuna, you're kind of like the opposite.
I would show my cat on camera, but he's in this Heidi box that I made, and I can't like pick him up. But if anybody wants to see what my cat looks like, his name's Prismo. Not trying to promote my Instagram, but if you go to vegangains.real on Instagram, you can see my cat.
Okay.
He's healthy. He's a very big, strong, healthy kitty.
So what about all the outside, like outdoor cats? You think we'd have to?
They need to be inside. They need to be inside. They do kill other animals. Cats are actually a big cause of ecological issues. They're extremely efficient hunters. So a lot of bird species end up becoming endangered where there's a lot of domesticated cats that are let outside. So yeah, you absolutely need to keep your cats indoors.
So, okay. So say then I'm walking to work and a deer comes and just knocks me out. Well, how do we punish this deer? Do we put him in jail for a few days? Hope he learns his lesson?
No, I don't think there's any need or any benefit to doing that.
So you only want them to have the good parts of the human rights? You don't want them to like? How do you put laws on animals?
So there are children who have brought guns to school that are too young to prosecute.
That's not
so
insane.
there was recently a kid who I believe was 5 or 6 years old, brought a gun to school, shot his teacher, and they couldn't prosecute him. They couldn't even bring him to juvenile hall. So same thing with animals. They don't have the mental capacity to be prosecuted. So the thing to do, say if there was, I don't know, a deer that was attacking people, relocate it to some more remote area where it can't, attack people, something like that, or just avoid the deer. Again, any of these questions could be answered like, what would we do in a, comparable human scenario, where if a human had the same intellect as the animal.
The animal thing, so like you're just saying, like basically, anytime I want to kill somebody, I just make sure I trap him in a garage with a deer with some big antlers that's pissed. Let the deer stomp him out and then be like, well, we can't get deer in trouble, so... Like,
well, you'd be the one responsible because you created the situation where the person died.
Okay, so again, okay, I don't see a world like you understand you'd also fuck up the ecosystem like crazy like this too, right?
Not necessarily. So there are ecosystems that have done just fine when predators were removed. Yellowstone National Park is an example of that. Sorry?
Wait, what'd you say? Which one?
Yellowstone National Park. Wolves left Yellowstone National Park, and the ecosystem.
They had to put wolves back in.
No. So the original authors of the paper disavowed the original paper, and they found that I know what article you're talking about. They actually found
sure they
that
bring wolves from Canada.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they did. And the original paper said that it changed the flora and fauna. It allowed some of the forest to regrow back, and it changed the deer's behavioral patterns. It turned out none of that was true. The changes to flora and fauna were actually due to environmental changes, so like climate change. The only thing that actually impacted deer and elk populations was illegal poaching. Wolves didn't actually kill enough deer and elk at a fast enough rate to actually impact their populations. And it didn't actually change their behavior. Deer and elk would act the same exact way they did before, with or without the wolves there. It's just that if wolves attacked, they'd leave and then come back after the wolves just fucked off.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go look on that because like I never saw this version. I've seen how they
if
what
you
they talked about how everything started getting fixed because of them.
The original article got a lot more press and attention than the rebuttal to the paper, basically, or the disavowal of the paper. But if you look up Yellowstone National Park authors disavow paper, you'll find the articles that you're looking for where they go over the actual evidence.
Okay. Okay, so let me ask you a question quick here too. What is your basis to like, is your thing that like because some humans are the same intelligence levels as some animals, that's why you think we should give them the same rights as humans? Like, what is it exactly that is it? Because you said sentience earlier and you said a brain and a nervous system. So is that your line? Like brain and a nervous system, they should be able to live.
So if a creature has what I would consider a substantive level of sentience, so I would say if they're able to experience well-being, I would say they have a right to live.
So then you kind of contradict yourself when you're saying we would wipe out all the animals that kill other animals.
No, that's not a contradiction because it prevents rights violations. So if you have a carnivorous animal, that means it's going to kill and eat other animals. So to protect the greatest number of sentient beings, it would make sense to kill that carnivorous animal. Sort of like how we kill serial killers if we can't catch them. If there's a serial killer on the loose, you know, we'll shoot them on sight if they can't be caught. So similar sort of idea.
Okay, so
it's kind of like if Batman killed the Joker, right? So if Batman killed the Joker, that would prevent more people from dying than if he just killed the Joker, because Joker's going to kill a lot of people. But if Batman lets the Joker live, more people are going to die.
And then if people still ate animals, your thing would be to kill them too, or?
Yes, that would apply to human beings. In an ideal world, if there were people who would not go vegan and would still kill and eat animals, then if you can't arrest them and put them in prison, then yeah, I'd be in favor of killing them if that's the only way to stop them from killing animals.
Okay, so this is kind of like you're like just like arbitrarily playing God with the world, right? Like you're just kind of picking what's
arbitrary about it.
You're deciding what is the right to human rights. Like you're deciding what gives something the right to human rights, even though we
all do that
as humans in general, right? Like you're one person. But in the general population, we've decided as humans are the ones that get humans' rights. Human rights are reserved for all human beings.
That hasn't always been the case. There have been groups of
always been the
humans
case,
that have
but we've
denied. There have been groups of humans that have denied Black rights. There have been groups of humans that have denied Jewish rights, women's rights.
Yep.
So I don't know what you mean by arbitrary.
Those weren't good things, right? Like those weren't exactly good things.
Yeah, we can both agree those weren't good things, but I don't see that as being any more arbitrary than my values. I mean, we're all going to argue for our own values. So if I value Black people, white people, Jews, cows, pigs, then I value those creatures and I'm going to include them in my value system. I don't know how that's any more or less arbitrary than somebody valuing humans and not those animals.
Yeah, like I think because you're kind of just deciding what means you get human rights, even though we've already decided as like a.
Yeah, so the reason I use a term like human rights is because we already have a robust system of we already have a robust system of human rights that I, for the most part, agree with. So I would, base my value system from there and see what other beings I would be interested in including in that, sort of value system.
Okay. So like for me, I think the value system of having people who don't eat anything that lives, and then people who just eat there's people who will just eat fish and stuff like this, right? Like, so like in my value system, I'm okay with all of them living together. So I think my value system includes more people.
No, I wouldn't.
Well,
say
yeah,
because
you would wipe me out in your value system.
Well, if you
refuse out in mine.
So if you refused to go vegan, or let's say you refused to stop killing animals, then yeah, in my value system, you'd either be imprisoned, and if imprisonment wasn't possible, then yeah, you'd be killed. But there are far more beings that are actually part of my value system. I think the figure is something like 40 billion land animals are killed per year. There's only about 8 billion of us right now. So there are far more sentient beings that are part of my value system, and I include humans in that value system. The only humans that wouldn't be part of that value system are humans that would violate the rights of other humans or animals. So I would be in favor of killing humans that kill other humans if imprisonment wasn't possible. I'd be in favor of killing humans who kill animals if imprisonment wasn't possible.
Okay. And it's only if there's a brain and a nervous system.
Well, you don't necessarily have to have a brain and nervous system to be sentient. So it's possible that we could develop like super intelligent artificial intelligence that becomes sentient. But a brain and nervous system is a very good indicator of a being sentient. So, a lot of creatures can't speak. They can't tell you, hello, yes, I'm alive and I think and feel. So, we have to make guesses as to what animals are and aren't sentient. And a very good indicator of sentience is a brain and nervous system.
Okay, so like a bug that has a brain, you think we shouldn't kill those?
Yeah, so I'd use the precautionary principle. So a bee has a very simple brain and nervous system, but they do appear to have a brain and nervous system. So I would say, yeah, so a bee, I wouldn't want to kill a bee.
Okay, so what about spiders?
Spiders, I would be fine with killing since they're carnivorous.
Because of them being carnivorous. Okay, but what about the worms then? Because worms do have brains.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if they do have a brain, then I guess I'd use the precautionary principle, not kill worms. At least not parasitic worms, so earthworms would be fine.
So you wouldn't like, so you would want to keep them alive, you're saying?
Yeah, like an earthworm. If it's a parasitic worm, like a roundworm or a
Okay.
tapeworm, then those could be killed.
So we're killing the chickens now again. Because chickens will eat the earthworms when they find them, right? If we just have chickens running around, free range chickens, they eat earthworms, grubs, all these things.
Yeah, they'll eat anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're domesticated animals. So in an ideal
do you
setting,
think people are going to
you would
keep
just be
pet
able
chickens?
to.
They're
Yeah,
only
absolutely.
domesticated. Wait, they're
There are
only
people who keep.
domesticated for their meat and eggs.
No, there are people who keep pet chickens. But so again, you could
Hardly
keep
any.
these
Okay,
animals.
let's be realistic. Most people do not keep chickens as pets. Let's not.
Well, yeah, I know.
Okay, so in most cases, the chickens are dead. We're killing off all these chickens.
Yeah, so if they're violating the rights of
Well, they're
other
going
conscious
to.
creatures, then yeah, I'd be in favor of killing them.
Okay, so then
you could maybe make an argument that because they're killing insects, the sentience gap is so large, you may just favor the chickens. But yeah,
so
again,
why doesn't
same
the
idea.
child why don't you have, because I find a contradiction here, because you're saying we wouldn't punish the deer that fucking toe punched the kid in the face because it's like punishing a child, but we're going to punish all these children that are going to do bad things, because even though you wouldn't punish the kid that goes to the school, shoots the teacher, but you would punish the animal that's like a kid to you and would go to the class and eat all the children, which is the other animals. So you're kind of you're contradicting your own self now, right? Like,
No,
on one hand,
no, I
I
don't.
don't want to punish them because they're like children, but on the other hand, is saying I want to genocide them.
Yeah, so when it comes to carnivorous animals, there is an absolute guarantee that they're going to commit a rights violation. So if they're wild and they're not in captivity,
Wild deer,
like
get close to a wild deer, and you probably have like an 80% chance it's gonna kick you in the face.
I've been around quite a few wild deer, and I've never been kicked in the face. I don't know what the chances are.
Like up close?
I know, yeah. I know hunters are more likely to get attacked by a wild deer than a bear. But maybe that's because they're hunting and they deserved it. But
deers don't.
But yeah, so it is entirely possible that you could have herbivorous animals that aren't predatory that could commit a rights violation. That is possible. Now, there could be, I don't know, some rogue problematic deer that, just want death upon human beings, something like that. If you could guarantee with a pretty high degree of certainty that there are certain deer that are going to kill people or kill other animals, then I would be fine with killing those sorts of deer.
Okay.
But like again,
the kid that says that, okay, we found this kid, he had a note that said I'm gonna kill everybody at school. We get him now, like, hey, no, can't do that. But he says the minute you guys let me go back to school, everyone's dead. So he's guaranteeing us that he's. So you think we should kill that kid now, or?
Well, in that scenario, you can change the environment or change the factors that would lead to killing. So you could just have them be in captivity or prevent them from ever owning weapons.
Do that with all the wolves and everything too, right?
No, I don't think that would be logistically possible to bring every wolf into captivity. But in cases where you could, then sure. Have them be in captivity, only feed them a vegan diet.
Tomorrow you wake up, every kid tells you, we guarantee we're going to kill people one day.
If every child?
Yeah, every kid.
Well, I guess we're going to have to make the human version of veal.
Ah, shit. That's great. So, okay. Okay, yeah, I still see a contradiction with the thing, like you're not going to punish the deers or whatever else hurts people if they commit a violation, but you're going to punish.
Yeah, I just don't see how you can. So yeah, like deer do attack people occasionally, but there's like a relatively high likelihood that they're not going to do it again, or they could be moved to an area where they can't do it. If there was like some sort of extremely aggressive species of deer that do like often kill rodents or other species, and again, you could, you know, with a very high degree of certainty say, okay, like 99% of these creatures are gonna like kill some animal during their lifetime intentionally, then yeah, I'd be fine with killing them. But yeah, in the case where, you know, an angry deer during mating season sees somebody, tramples them, maybe crushes a ball or two, the likelihood of them doing it again and it really being a problem, oh crap, sorry, is pretty low. So yeah, I don't see the reason to punish them.
How would you account for overpopulation of the animals?
Yeah, so I've looked into this quite a bit.
Outnumber us very quickly.
Yeah, so I've looked into this quite a bit. It seems like the main reason why you see overpopulation of deer is because they have a very large unbroken territorial range. So in the early 20th century or late 19th century, there's actually a very low population of white-tailed deer. They were going extinct. So what the government did was they reforested a lot of farmland, they regulated hunting, and they gave them this very large territorial range that's unbroken. That's the big thing. And that makes them breed like crazy. So if you were to just give them smaller pockets of territorial range that's broken up by, say, like human cities or farmland, stuff like that, you likely wouldn't see these population explosions. And there's also been research.
You don't think if the deer knew that they're not going to be killed anymore, that eventually they start coming into the cities more and eating people's garbage, and then we're actually hurting them now because they're starting to like develop habits they didn't have before?
It's possible, but like if that became a big problem, you could shoot them with like rubber bullets or something. Just tell them to fuck off.
Just torture animals.
No, I wouldn't consider that torture if it's ultimately for their benefit.
So would you be okay with like? What about the guy who like scrunches through your recycling to find cans? Should we be okay to shoot him with rubber bullets too?
I don't see what harm like a homeless guy who's looking through my trash is doing.
Well, the deer that eats the trash, maybe it's only gonna harm the deer.
Well, right, but you'd have an interest in not harming the deer. So if you have a interest to do things that are in the deer's interest, you would say shoot them with a rubber bullet or do something to make them fuck off and not come into the city.
Okay, so you would like kind of like deter the deer from coming to the city.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a variety of ways that you could.
We'd have to like pay some resources towards this for sure, because like again, there would be like not only deer, there would be like all types of animals, right?
Well, there are all types of animals like raccoons. They break into trash all the time. And again, there's ways of preventing them from
it would be
that.
overpopulated because we're not allowed to kill these animals.
No, again, if you break up their territorial range, that would likely prevent overpopulation.
How do you do that?
There's also, well, again, you just get rid of these forested areas and just have farmland or have just like, develop apartments or something like that.
Trees give us oxygen. We need trees. And
we have lots of trees already, and I don't think we're at risk of, starving ourselves of oxygen if we just, in a tactical manner, get rid of some forested area to prevent deer from overpopulating. And on top of that, there are chemical castration darts, so it prevents deer from mating. And those seem to be more effective at preventing overpopulation than just hunting.
So now we're gonna fuck with their fertility as well.
Yeah.
So
again,
like,
if it's in their interest,
God with the animals, basically.
So,
right? Like,
would you rather brutally murder deer like Bambi's mother, or would you rather shoot Bambi's mother with a dart that just makes it so she can't have kids?
No. you say brutally murder. Like when you shoot the deer, it's not a brutal murder.
Oh, it is. I've shot guns before.
Yeah.
I was just, yeah, no, it's brutal. Have you ever seen a person get shot with a shotgun?
Yeah, that's different, right? That's way different.
That's a brutal murder.
No, because when you shoot a deer with the rifle, you're usually training yourself ahead of time. You're aiming for the right spot so that it's a one shot. Or usually the deer runs off, lays down, dies.
I've seen people get shot in the head with rifles, and that does not look pretty. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody.
A person getting a headshot with a rifle, you're saying? A person?
Yeah, I've seen people get shot in the head with shotguns, rifles. I've seen executions. Like,
yeah, but
it's brutal. It's not pretty.
Oh, okay. If you're saying brutal as in how it looks, okay, maybe it doesn't look pretty, but animals are like their life doesn't look pretty, you know, like they.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather get shot in the head with a shotgun, die instantly, or just have a vasectomy where you can't have kids anymore?
Well, again, this is me as a human being. Of course, like that choice, I'm going to choose life.
But right, and I would assume a deer would prefer that as well.
I'm sure it would prefer this if it had the capacity to even think like that, but it doesn't.
Right, but like we can make these decisions for, you know, mentally disabled people. I'm sure like a mentally disabled person would prefer to be at a healthy body weight and not, you know, suffer heart disease, even though they might not be smart enough and they might want to eat McDonald's all the time. And you have to kind of make that decision for them. So, like, again, if we have an interest in generally being humane, benevolent, I would rather control deer population if we needed to by reducing their territorial range and maybe chemically castrating them versus blowing them away with high-powered rifles and shotguns.
Yeah, but like that again, that's not like you're equating it to how human beings do these things, right? Like it's just not the same.
Yeah, but I'm sure deer would prefer that, and it would be in their best interest.
It'd be in their best interest. Why though? What if like usually too, like, when you hunt, you're not
deer want to live.
Yeah, but you're usually what? You think
like I would assume deer want to live, okay, and they don't want to get shot with shotguns.
Why do you assume that?
Well, let's see. They run away when you go near them, generally. They seem to run away from predators. If you shoot something loud at them, if you miss, they run away and they seem fearful of their lives. So they do things that seem in the interest of self-preservation.
Or is that just their biological nature to do so?
Well, if you were to shoot a gun at people, I don't think they're really consciously thinking about anything, and it is in their biological nature to run away from, like, you know, firearms being shot at them. So I don't think anybody's consciously, you know, contemplating life and having existential thoughts when they're getting shot at.
But we also still, like, we still have the, a lot of people have the capacity to choose from the fight or flight, where with something like a deer that's a prey, when it comes to predators, they just flight. There's no fight.
Well, that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting thing you bring up. Like, how do you even determine what is and isn't choice? Because again, if you've ever seen mass shooting footage, people will just all run away. Nobody just stands still and gets shot at. So are they choosing to run away, or is that just kind of like a natural flight response to an insurmountable threat?
That's a lot of the time it's either there's two things that's going on. The people that see what's happening, they run because they see what's happening with the guns. The people around them, though, this is like a social conformity. This is just like they've done lots of social experiments like this. You can like start running out of nowhere around people, and they'll all start running with you because they don't know what's coming, but they realize you are running from something. They understand that. But a deer isn't going to be like, yo, when I start running from something, the deer's going to run away from me. It's not going to run with me. Right?
I mean, I could
be standing with a deer, and then I start running this way. because a wolf's coming over here, the deer will probably run that way or this way. It won't run with me away from the wolf. It doesn't care where I ran. It just started running.
I've seen dogs run with their owners. I've seen cats have that sort of social behavior where something will spook them and they'll all run in the same direction. I mean, I don't understand why any of this is meaningful. Like, the point is, I think we know with a high degree of certainty deer would prefer to get chemically castrated than to get shot with a high-powered rifle or shotgun.
So, okay. The thing is with us, right? When we hear gunshots, we know it's gunshots. If I go beside someone, they're not going to start running. That deer, though, that deer is going to start running.
If
right?
there's a sufficiently loud noise, people will actually jump and run. You may not necessarily know what the noise is.
People, but okay, sufficiently loud. But I'm saying if I do this, the deer's going to run. If I do this in front of someone, they're going to be like, are you retarded? What's wrong with you? Like,
the deer might run if that's what's required to spook it. But again, like, I've stood next to deer and my friend, it was at a golf course. A friend of mine went up to the deer, walked right up to him, petted him, and gave him some of the cashews he had in his pocket.
Is this an area that the deer is used to humans doing this with it? Because this could be a reason.
It might be. It was near a golf course.
Yeah, so that could be the reasoning for that, right? The deer's been trained in a way, right? But like, it's because it's been trained. But if we're talking about wild deer, which all these wild deer would be, unless you're saying now we're also training all these wild animals.
Well, we're socially trained. We're socially trained from the moment we're born. We've been socialized to have certain behaviors. I've seen some kids who were refugees from Afghanistan, and whenever there was something big happening, rather than like going to see what was happening, like construction noises, he would hide. So, like, they're social, like, humans are socially trained to do certain things. I don't see how that's massively different than the behavior you're seeing from deer.
Well, it's definitely different because like they don't have the capacity to know better.
Okay, but they, like, again, we can still determine that it would be in their best interest.
Like, they never reached a stage like a deer. It's got the mind of a 3-year-old, like.
Right, and that's fine. I think we can say if the deer could understand these things, it would prefer to be chemically castrated than shot. Right,
so, but I'm sure all those other animals that you're willing to kill would also prefer to live and be able to eat other animals too. So
right, and those animals that they're killing would prefer to be able to live.
But you don't care what the animals prefer.
Well, I do, clearly.
The vegetarian animals prefer.
So, well,
like, also yes. The ocean. Imagine how many things in the ocean you have to go kill now, dude. We're just going to wipe out
the oceanic ecosystems
of the ocean?
Yeah, so oceanic ecosystems are kind of complex. So almost every animal in the ocean is carnivorous. So, right. So you'd have to be careful. You'd have to be careful with which carnivorous animals you're killing, because fish on the higher end of the food chain, they might eat fish on the lower end of the food chain, but killing that fish on the higher end of the food chain might actually cause more rights violations, because it allows more fish to kill and eat more fish.
Wait, but in your thing, we would have to kill all of them. They're all carnivorous.
Yeah, so if it would reduce rights violations, then I would be in favor of it.
Yeah, so like that's what I mean. Like the ecosystem of the world would just perish if we did this.
Maybe like I'm not entirely in favor of killing every carnivorous animal without doing any kind of research or having any kind of preparation for ecological engineering. So if I were to become unquestioned world leader, I wouldn't just mandate the entire oceans to be wiped out, because, yeah, that could end up killing us in some way. But
Right.
like again, if we did have the power for ecological engineering and we could wipe out these species that exist by killing each other, I'd be in favor of it.
So, but you'd have to know the outcomes of all of this.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I wouldn't do anything until I know the outcomes.
Right. So, like, again, this would take thousands of years to even accomplish.
Possibly, sure, but I don't know why we shouldn't have, say, an interest in being benevolent.
Yeah, but you would be willing to risk literally the population of the world just so we don't eat some animals.
No. Again, if there was adequate research done and we had the technology for ecological engineering, there wouldn't be a risk. And right now, if you're talking about things like,
a lot of ifs there, right? So, like,
well, speaking of, if you're worried about the safety of human populations, meat eating is causing a reduction in food security. So if you read, I believe it's either the 2018 or 2019 UN's climate report, if you go to chapter 5, page 76, they talk about how if we stopped animal agriculture today, we would be able to feed the population that's expected to exist by 2050, which I think is around 14, 15 billion, while using less agricultural land than we use today. So all the corn and soybeans that we're growing right now, the majority of them are going to feed livestock, so like cows. So it's actually causing a food scarcity issue. So if you have an interest in, humanity and humanity's survival and food security, we have to move to a plant-based food system to ensure food security.
But wait, no, because like, what would you do again? What would you do with all the cows? You would release them eventually, no?
Well, the idea there is we'd gradually move away from, using animals and then move to a plant-based food system. Like, yeah, ideally we would have some sort of way to liberate all the animals today and have some way to feed them and just castrate them so that they can't reproduce, let them like live their natural life. But again, we need to move to a plant-based food system eventually if we want to ensure food security for the planet.
Well, this is just a guess, though. That's not
a guess. That is mathematically proven. There is not enough farmland on Earth to sustain a population that's expected to exist by 2050 if we keep the food system exactly the same. You're going to have big issues with food security.
So you think right now, with the way our system is, we couldn't sustain the population?
If we essentially doubled our population, if we kept the exact same food system, so the same proportion of calories coming from meat being produced, we wouldn't be able to feed everybody.
What makes you even think this, though?
Yeah, so you can read the paper by Cornell University on meat and how it impacts food security. You can read the UN's, it's either the 2018 or 2019 climate report, chapter 5, page 76. They go into the data on how moving to a plant-based food system would actually increase the amount of food we have. Because again, the animals you eat need to eat. And the majority of their food is coming from food that you would be able to eat. So like corn and soybeans. So if you were to stop feeding animals the food that you could eat, we could massively increase the food supply.
But you're already, that's suggesting we have like a shortage of a food supply.
Well, right now we don't. We are.
I can go to the grocery stores and they throw something that expired yesterday into the dump. Like,
yeah. So right now, food security. So right now, food security isn't the biggest concern. Food cost is more of a concern. You could bring down food costs by moving to a plant-based food system because it's just far more efficient. But in the future, when the population doubles, in the future, when the population doubles, actually having access to food is going to be a huge problem, and we're going to need to move to a plant-based food system.
So wait, you're saying like when we have no choice of the hamburger anymore and the only choice is the lettuce, right? Right now we're
soybeans or soy burger,
whatever, soybeans, corn. You're saying that will cause the corn to be less money.
Yes. So
you think like
so this is just economies. This is basically
put the prices down.
So this is basically economy of scale and efficiency. So let's say you were to grow, I don't know, a square mile of soybeans. That square mile of soybeans would only be able to feed maybe a few cattle. So, but that square mile of soybeans might be able to feed many human beings, like say hundreds. So you have better economies of scale and you have a more efficient food system.
Yeah, but like again, we would only be eating this. There wouldn't even be the availability for meat anymore, and you think that would cause the price to go down?
Yes, the price of food in general would go down.
With anything else?
Sorry?
Where else does that happen when like there's a demand for something and the price goes down? Like I've never.
It's because of it's because of economy of scale and efficiency. So if you let's say about, I think the actual figures are worldwide about 15% or 20% of soybeans actually go to human consumption. If 100% of those soybeans go to human consumption now and not animal consumption, that means you just have a greater supply and greater economy of scale. So that will bring prices down.
What about like all the nutrients and protein you get from meat?
So you can get all the nutrition you need from plant foods. I've been vegan for 13 years and I'm not dead yet. I'm also a big ass bodybuilder and I can bench 380 pounds.
But it's not the same quality, right?
No, it's the same quality. You could argue in some ways it's better because it doesn't cause cancer and heart disease. The protein in plants, so soybeans, if we're going to use that as an example, the bioavailability is nearly identical. The breakdown of branched chain amino acids is also quite similar. Red meat does have a greater amount of leucine, but it's not a substantive difference. And you actually get less fat from soybeans. A lot of cuts of meat have very large amounts of saturated fat.
But you need to eat more to get the same nutrients, no?
No, so you might need to eat a greater food volume. So, yeah. You know, like the volume of food is more, but like in terms of calories, no. And it kind of depends on food choices, right? So if you eat more fatty foods like nuts and seeds and maybe some oils, you can cut down your volume of food a bit. And if you eat some more processed foods that are more calorically dense, you can cut your food down, food volume down a bit more. But like I've been bodybuilding for quite a few years. I can bench 380 pounds. That's my best bench. And again, if you look at my Instagram, you can see some pretty impressive lifts.
We sure you're not cheating and eating meat? We're not
nope. No video. I have not eaten any meat in 13 years.
No meat in 13 years. I go wild, my guy. Crazy. I crazy.
No, I went vegan before it was cool, before like Beyond Meat and everything existed. And even back then it was pretty easy. But now there's so many choices. Like even if you go to a gas station, you can see like vegan options. So it's pretty easy now.
Okay, so wouldn't this though, like if for this demand of like if we were to demand veganism for people, wouldn't this be taking away from my already human rights though?
No, I don't see. Like, do you think you should have a right to kill innocent animals? I don't think that should be a right.
Yeah,
you have.
I think I should have a right to hunt for my own food. Yeah. if I wanted to.
Okay, well, I would disagree, and I would say that if the only way to be logically consistent there is if you'd be okay with killing mentally disabled human beings.
No, because again, the human being trumps anything. Just the fact, for me, if
Right,
being, it trumps everything.
right. But if black people weren't actually human being, they weren't part of the genus Homo.
They are, though.
But if they
Right.
weren't, and there were mentally disabled black people, in order to be logically consistent, you would have to be okay with killing them.
Yeah, no, but you're like, the way you're saying like black people, you're already like, you're suggesting that they're human beings already, though, right? Like you're already suggesting like,
no, people call dogs or their pets people. People or
I don't care what
personhood
they
can be
call
granted. Like personhood is really granted. So like I call my cat a person, I call my dogs person.
Yeah, but they're not people, right? They're not human beings. So like,
Well, again, human and personhood are a different thing. If we were to meet a like alien species, like Vulcans from Star Trek, we would call them people. So personhood isn't attached to the genus Homo. It's just something that's granted.
Right, but for me, it's human being, right? Like, and like when you say, okay, if black people weren't, like, you're taking something, like, it's literally like, this is something you like, nobody can fathom even this thought, right? Like, to just to even answer this question, right? Like saying, if black people were animals, would you be okay with killing them? Like, you're just saying, all you're saying to me is, if black people were deers, would you be okay with killing them? I'm already okay with killing deers.
Well, we can
You're using black people to make it like,
well, I think
you're that question, but what you're saying is, if black people were deers, would I be okay with killing them? Yes, they're deers.
Okay, so I think
black people. This is like,
I think we're getting
I know how you wording it, and I see what you're doing. But
so I think we're getting kind of confused with the language. So rather than calling them black people, let's just call them black human-like beings. If black human-like beings were not humans. We're not humans, but they're human-like, but they weren't humans, and there were mentally disabled members of their species. To be logically consistent, you would have to be okay with killing them. And I think you're uncomfortable with saying yes, because I think you kind of recognize that it's a bit fucked up.
No, because you're using humans. You're using human beings.
Well,
right?
I didn't use humans. I said human-like.
You're using people that I'm blood related to like.
Well, I said human-like.
That's why I'm saying, if they were dogs instead, deers instead, cows instead, yes, I don't grant them the same human rights, but they're not.
Well, I said human-like. So let's say if the black people as we know them today, let's say I wasn't human, and let's say I had a mentally disabled child, you, in order to be logically consistent, would have to be okay with killing that mentally disabled child.
No.
Well, you would, because the two things that you value are human intelligence and wisdom, and being part of the human species.
Right.
So if I wasn't part of the human species and I had a mentally disabled child, you personally would have to be okay with killing that mentally disabled child.
No. Because like, it'd be the child of you that is a human, right?
Well, like, sorry, in the hypothetical, I wouldn't be human. So let's just say I wasn't part of the human species.
Human wisdom and knowledge, right?
Well, I would have human wisdom and knowledge, but my child wouldn't.
Yeah, but still, it's an extension of you. It comes from your DNA.
Right, but it's not human DNA, and the child is mentally disabled. So in order to be logically consistent, you would have to be okay with killing my mentally disabled child, assuming I wasn't human.
Yeah, so like, again, this is again, you're saying if you were an animal, right?
Well, humans are animals. We are apes by definition.
Okay. So if you weren't a human being.
Right. If I wasn't human, like I could be an alien. You don't know. I'm probably human, but I could be an alien. I do have some crazy ideas. Or I could just be part of a different unknown species. Maybe I'm related to Bigfoot. And I had a mentally disabled child. In order to be logically consistent, you would have to be okay with killing my mentally disabled child.
No, I wouldn't have to be though, because again, you have human wisdom and it's your child. So like I just don't have to
Right,
be.
but my child doesn't have human wisdom.
I don't care.
Okay, well, I see that as a contradiction.
Well, you
Because
can
again,
see
if you're
it
going
as
to
a
value,
contradiction, but this is only for your hypothetical. But you can't
right, it's
find a
only for the
contradiction.
hypothetical.
You can't find a contradiction in what we can talk about today with it. But I found already
Well,
a contradiction with what you would choose to do with what we have today, is to
well,
kill all the animals that would eat animals, but you wouldn't punish the animal that kills a human being because they're just an animal, poor little animal. So why
well, I
would you do that?
wouldn't punish a 5 or 6 year old child for bringing a gun to school and shooting a teacher, because I don't think they have the mental capacity for any sort of punishment to be valuable.
So there would be nothing done with this kid at all. You don't think that
Well, you'd
have
maybe
play with
want
it,
to
there's nothing?
like teach him, hey,
Right.
guns hurt
Yeah,
people,
because
stuff
they
like
have a
that.
hope. They have a hope. What do you do with the deer? You just
Well,
let
right,
them back into the wild?
again, if let's say this was a mentally disabled child and you couldn't talk them into like not bringing a gun to school. So anytime they found a gun, they would pick it up and maybe point it at somebody and shoot it because they didn't understand the consequences and stuff. You wouldn't kill the mentally disabled child. You would probably make sure they don't have access to guns. Maybe put them in a special school or a special area where they can't hurt anybody. Same with the deer. So I don't see that as a contradiction, but like I think we did find a contradiction in your values, even though these hypotheticals don't exist. Like there aren't alien species that we know of today.
Right.
There is a contradiction in your values, and I think you have to either grant animals rights, or you have to be okay with making some uncomfortable decisions, like killing my mentally disabled child, assuming like I'm an alien.
No, because again, you're not the same thing, or your mentally disabled child is not the same thing as a cow and a deer. So I don't have to treat them the same. Just like you don't have to treat the animal that's
Oh,
going to eat
okay.
animals the same. You don't have to, right? You would keep the herbivore animals, the carnivorous animals, you would kill them off, right?
Okay.
So again, for me,
So
because it's an extension of something with human wisdom, I wouldn't be okay with killing it. It's
okay,
not
so
a contradiction. It's just
you make
I'm okay with both. I'm okay with not killing the mentally disabled child of yours, and I'm okay with killing cows and eating them.
okay,
There's
so
no
it sounds
contradiction.
like you're saying
The
you
cow
have
isn't the same thing.
totally right, but it sounds like you're saying you can make totally different evaluations based on each individual animal. If that's the case, then I'd ask you, what is the trait difference between, say, my mentally disabled child and I don't know, a deer, where you would treat my mentally disabled child like and give it human rights or close to human rights, but you wouldn't give the deer human rights.
Again, it's because the child of yours comes from you, which is a species of the nature, clearly to talk and have the same wisdom and everything as me. But a cow and a deer is not of that nature, never will be. So like
Okay, well, neither is my mentally disabled child. It will always be
it is
disabled
though.
and it will
It
never
is
be
it's
human.
of the nature though. It came from you. It's your child.
What do you mean by of the nature? Because again,
It's the
it's
same species as you.
right, but it's not a human species.
It doesn't matter. It came from you, and I'm determining its life based off what you are, because we obviously don't know what you are. You're something
Okay.
that is new, and
So if
we don't
human
know.
beings could birth deer, you wouldn't be in favor of killing deer?
If human beings could birth deer, that'd be fire.
Right.
Yeah.
but it would be. But if human beings could birth deer, you'd be against killing deer?
Nope.
Then how does this make any sense?
Well, because you're telling me that a human being is birthing another species. So again, it's another species. It's a whole nother species.
But I'm another species, and I'm birthing another species.
Right. But the species is whatever you are, not a deer.
Right, but I wouldn't be human in the hypothetical.
It doesn't matter. You're still got the wisdom and everything of a human being.
Right, but a human being, if they birthed a deer, the deer parent would have human wisdom.
Okay. No, okay.
Like, have you? Let me just ask you this: have you ever like really liked a dog or cat? Like, have you ever pet an animal and like just looked into its eyes, noticed how sweet and soft and cuddly they are, that they're like, you know, full of love and they just want cuddles?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like why? Like I all of these animals that we kill and eat are capable of giving and receiving that sort of affection. I just like on a personal level.
You're using these outliers hypotheticals. Like, it's not even like only a hypothetical, it's an outlier. And you're using it to ask why I wouldn't determine we don't use outliers to determine anything.
Well, we're discussing your values and we're testing your values.
This would be like me asking you, if the 10-year-old had the same mental capacity as you, would you be okay with sleeping with a 10-year-old? Like, this hypothetical that you're doing are ridiculous.
So I can answer that if you want. I don't think those sorts of hypotheticals are not meaningful. So yeah, if 10-year-old children had the mental capacity of, say, 30-year-olds, I don't see what's wrong with having sex with a 10-year-old. If they had the same mental capacity as a 30-year-old, we would have a completely different standard for what would constitute legal age of consent. Like, there's a reason we give the legal age of consent is generally 16 to 18 in most states.
Sorry.
There's a reason we give that to 16 to 18-year-olds, not 10-year-olds.
What if in general it's okay? Let's make it more like yours. Sorry. What if there was just one 10-year-old that had the same mental capacity as a 30-year-old? Do you think you should be able to sleep with that one 10-year-old?
Yeah, so I would use the precautionary principle and say, like, if this was reality, and say, no, you shouldn't, because there's a chance we fucked up. And it doesn't have the capacity. But if it's assumed in the hypothetical, the 10-year-old has the same mental capacity as a 30-year-old. So I don't know. Let's say you zapped a 30-year-old person with a de-aging ray and they became 10 years old. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, you know, Goku and Dragon Ball GT.
Okay. But again, so like, because I wanted it to equal with your situation with the one talking cow, right?
Sure.
So like, again, so with the one 10-year-old, even though every other 10-year-old is still normal how 10-year-olds are, you still you would not be okay because it's only one 10-year-old?
No, that's not what I said. So if we are assuming in the hypothetical this 10-year-old had the same intelligence, same like development of their frontal lobe where they can actually rationalize, make decisions.
It's only 10-year-old.
Yeah, so had the same degree of human wisdom that a 30-year-old would have. So they're culturally aware, socially aware, like they have the required life experience to make, you know, an informed decision on consent. Then yeah, if it was that one 10-year-old, I'd be fine with that. But again, in real life with practicalities, when we have to make decisions on protecting younger people, we can't really on an individual basis make those sorts of decisions in real life.
But wait, because you're saying that I contradicted myself with something you just kind of exactly said. So you would be okay with sleeping with the one 10-year-old, but not.
Well, I wouldn't personally.
No, but you're saying it would be okay. right? For a 30-year-old to sleep with the one 10-year-old.
Well, this isn't a contradiction because
wait. Follow me for a second.
Sure.
Because you said that the one 30-year-old or the one 10-year-old with the 30-year-old brain, you can sleep with that person, right?
So I just want to be very clear because this is a touchy subject.
Yeah.
And I already see people in the chat. I am totally against adults sleeping with children. Okay. I'm not pro pedophilia. I want to say that.
Okay.
And I don't think a adult should ever sleep with a child. Okay. I just want to make that very fucking clear.
100%.
Okay. So we're just talking about on a purely hypothetical basis.
Right.
And, you know, in a hypothetical world, what would be right and wrong? Okay. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah. Got you. So again, I just want to, like, yes or no, is it okay in this hypothetical for the one 10-year-old that has the brain of a 30-year-old to sleep with a 30-year-old person, but not the other 10-year-olds around them?
So, yes, if the standard is adult wisdom and knowledge, that is what grants, you know, somebody the ability to have informed consent, then yes, the one marginal case 10-year-old would it would be okay. But again, I'm not saying it's okay for adults to do this. This is purely on a hypothetical basis.
I get it. Right. And like with the reason I brought that is because now you can't say mine is a contradiction, because I'm saying that with you as whatever species you are and your kid, I'm not okay with killing. But a deer that has the same brain capacity as your kid, I'm still okay with killing the deer. It's not a contradiction. I just showed you in the opposite.
Well, no, that would be a contradiction. So if
then why can't the people just sleep with other 10-year-olds too? If the one deer is
because the risk of harm is so high.
Because the risk of harm is so high.
So if we were having a debate over the age of consent, and I were to argue that you need at least the wisdom and intelligence of an 18-year-old to give informed consent, and you were to say, okay, what if a 10-year-old had the wisdom and knowledge of an 18-year-old? Would it be okay then? Then yes, logically speaking, it would be okay for that 10-year-old. But in terms of like policy on consent, that doesn't mean you're like in reality, you're going to have this idea that, okay, well, let's have some sort of standard for, you know, determining what 10-year-olds or, you know, what people. It just gets too difficult and too muddy, and the risk of harm gets too high. So we set these standards.
I get it. And that is why human beings have a different rights than animals, because in general, outliers, there's mental disabilities, right?
Yeah.
But in general, we're not mentally deficient. So this is why humans get granted rights that animals don't.
I'm not against granting humans rights. And again, I think if we're talking about,
we have rights different. Like we're different than, because in general we're a lot more animals. You try to get people with mental disabilities to like say, why don't we kill them then if we're okay with killing animals? And I'm saying it's because in human beings, those are outliers. Those are not how in general human beings are.
Right, but this is about marginal cases, and in the marginal case example, if your two values are human intelligence and wisdom, or just human wisdom, whatever, we could use those terms interchangeably to make it simple, and being part of the human species, then if we were to find a species that didn't have human intelligence and didn't have human wisdom, you'd be okay with killing them. If we were to find some sort of marginal case where you're not okay with, killing them, then I see that as a contradiction in your values, and you need to find some sort of change to your values. Either you include non-human, non-intelligent species into your value set, or you're going to have to be okay with killing, this one exception.
Then no, because then then I can just turn it around and say, then you would have to be okay with 30-year-olds sleeping with all 10-year-olds.
No, that's not analogous.
Yeah, it is, because you're saying that because I'm not okay with killing the one species that has wisdom, the kid of the species that has wisdom, you're saying because I'm not willing to kill that one, I shouldn't be willing to kill animals either. But that doesn't, that's not the same. It's just not. I don't have to change my values. It comes from something that has my values already. It's a part of that species. It doesn't matter that it's not
well, look, if the two qualifiers are human wisdom and human species, and a species lacks that qualifier, or a being, say, lacks that qualifier, and you're still willing to give it rights or certain sets of human rights.
Only because of you, though.
Well, I don't know why it matters, but okay, sure. Either you have to do some sort of change to your value set, like you have to you're saying there's some other qualifier that you missed, or again, you have to admit that it's a contradiction, or you just have to bite the bullet and say you're okay with killing my mentally retarded kid.
No, I don't, though. Like, I don't see why you keep like saying that. Again, I'm saying the reason is that it comes from you. Like that's my reason.
Okay. Let's say it didn't come from me. How would that change anything?
So if it was just some random species that was just like any other animal?
Let's say this retarded child of mine wasn't birthed from me, and it just popped into existence. It had the same exact qualities, but it just popped into existence. You'd be okay with killing it?
It's just a random animal that popped into existence?
Yeah, it just popped into existence.
No, I'd want to study it. It'd be a cool species to learn, because I think that's a cool thing that human beings do. We learn
okay, but let's say you didn't have an interest in doing that.
I do have the interest in doing that.
Okay, let's say you didn't. You'd be okay with killing it?
Let's say you didn't have a care if people ate meat.
Okay, but that doesn't change.
You can't change my question, my answer. I'm saying my answer, and you're saying, but what if you didn't? So I'm asking you.
Well, if I didn't have an interest, then we wouldn't be having this debate.
Right, exactly. So like that's what I mean. Like that's
yeah, but that hypothetical completely changes the direction of the debate. I'm just asking if you didn't have a scientific interest, would you be okay? Well, I'm just saying if you didn't have some kind of scientific interest, would you be okay with killing this being that just popped into existence?
Well, again, I do have the interest, and if I didn't, some other human beings would, and I would be taking away from other human beings' rights to do that. So,
okay, I think we've exhausted the debate. I think
you're gonna have a burger soon, bro.
No, I think
gonna have some burgers and fries. And milk.
Okay, look, I think I've shown to everybody that your beliefs do result in some sort of contradiction, and I would recommend to you and your viewers to consider trying out veganism, just, eating a plant-based diet, and think about the animals that you're actually harming. Because I think a lot of people, if you were to meet these cows, chickens, or pigs, you would find that they're conscious creatures. They're not too dissimilar from, say, your pet cat or your pet dogs that you have. And they can give you love and affection, and they can, respond and respect your love and affection that you could give them.
The lady that had the monkey that ripped off her face thought that too.
Yeah, well, it was a chimpanzee, and it was a male chimp, and that. But I'm not recommending anybody have a pet chimpanzee. I'm just saying the animals you're eating are conscious creatures, and they have feelings just like your pets. So consider not killing animals that are like your pets, and consider, trying out a vegan diet. And it has other benefits. There are health benefits. There are environmental benefits. It's a win-win. You don't kill animals, you don't harm them, and it can benefit you personally.
And my advice from Escape with Speakeasy show is try a burger. They taste really good.
Yeah, Beyond Burger.
No,
or an Impossible Burger.
A real juicy burger with some.
Everybody's had those already. Everybody's had those. Try an Impossible Burger. They're over at Burger King. You can go to Burger King and order an Impossible Whopper. And I think there's a few fast food chains like A&W that still have Beyond Burgers, and you can just pick them up from a store. So give it a try. I think you'll. I think a lot of people.
You know what? I am gonna try Beyond Burger now, just for you.
Okay.
Honestly.
Sure.
I've never tried one, honestly, because I just think. Ugh.
I personally think the Impossible Burgers are better, but the Beyond Burgers are good too. You can try a variety of them. It doesn't hurt to try.
All right, I'll try it out. Before you go, tell everybody where to find you too.
So I'm Vegan Gains on YouTube. I do debates like this all the time. And I stream regularly, pretty much every day. And you can also find me on Instagram, vegangains.real on Instagram, and you can see some of my pets, some of my gym lifts, and just some of the life stuff I'm doing.
Word. If
all right, well,
find me, it's Escape with Speakeasy. I am Speakeasy on everything else. And anytime you want to come by. It was a good talk. What was a good talk. One you were talking about? Moral realism, right?
Yeah, moral realism.
I'll prepare for that one next time.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks, man. Take care.
Thanks for coming, man. All right.